All right, let's talk about something that every researcher knows all too well. You do this incredible, groundbreaking work, but then how do you actually get the world to pay attention? Today, we're going to break down that exact journey, from a finished manuscript to making a real-world impact.
You know, it's such a frustrating feeling, isn't it? You spend months, maybe even years, on a study. You get it through peer review, you get it published, and then nothing. Just crickets. So why does so much important research just seem to vanish into thin air?
Well, a huge part of the problem is just the sheer volume. Think about it. You're not just publishing a paper. You're dropping it into a massive ocean with millions of other articles. Just getting published isn't the finish line anymore. To even have a chance, your work has to be super easy for people to find. So, how in the world do you do that? Glad you asked. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll dig into this visibility problem. Then, we'll cover the basics, building a rock-solid manuscript. After that, we get into the fun stuff, optimizing your title, abstract, and keywords. And finally, we'll talk about how to shout your research from the rooftops after it's published. Okay, let's start by really defining this challenge. You see, publishing isn't just about ticking a box for your career. It's actually a core part of how science moves forward, and the stakes are probably a lot higher than you realize. This quote really just nails it. Publishing isn't a personal goal. It's a duty to your field. It's how we all share what we've learned, build on each other's work, and turn findings into actual solutions. If your work can't be found, that whole beautiful cycle just breaks. So, before we can even dream about getting seen, the work itself has to be absolutely crystal clear. It all starts with a manuscript that's so well structured that anyone, from a reviewer to a reader, can follow your logic without breaking a sweat. And for that, we have a true gold standard, the IMRAD structure. You've probably seen it a million times. Introduction, methods, results, and discussion. You should think of it as the universal language of science papers. It creates a rhythm that everyone expects, which lets them get to the good stuff, your findings, that much faster. So let's quickly walk through how IMRAD tells a compelling story. The introduction sets the scene. Here's the problem, and here's the piece of the puzzle my study is going to solve. The methods section is basically your recipe book. It's got to be detailed enough for someone else to do the exact same thing. The results? That's the what. You're just laying out the facts, no commentary. And then the discussion is the so what. This is where you connect your work back to the big picture and explain why it all matters. Okay, you've got a solid manuscript. Now we're going to make a pretty big shift. We're going from writing just for people to writing for people and for the search engines that help them find your work. And this whole new game starts with the single most important piece of the puzzle, your title.
The strategy we're talking about here has a name: Academic Search Engine Optimization, or ASEO. And look, this isn't about gaming the system or anything shady. It's simply about making it incredibly obvious to platforms like Google Scholar what your paper's about so they can show it to the exact researchers who need to see it.
And you know what? A few small tweaks can make a world of difference. Take a look at this. A novel look at tropical deforestation. It's kind of vague, right? But what about satellite remote sensing for monitoring tropical deforestation in the Amazon? See? That's packed with specific, searchable terms that another scientist would actually type into a search bar. It's descriptive, it's accurate, and it's way more likely to get that click. So let's just boil this down to a quick and dirty checklist. Get your 1 or 2 most important keywords right up front. Always be thinking like your audience. What words would they use to find this paper? And a little pro tip, try to make your title unique so you're not accidentally competing with your own older articles. All right, moving on from the title. Your next big power duo for getting discovered are the abstract and your keywords. These two work together like a well-oiled machine, giving search engines all the juicy details they need to understand and rank your paper.
And this right here is why the first few lines of your abstract are so incredibly important. Think about it. Google often only shows you a little preview snippet. That means those first 2 sentences are basically your entire sales pitch. They have to hook both a human reader and the search algorithm at the same time.
So the takeaway is simple. Put your main finding right at the top. Weave your most important keywords in there a few times, but, make it sound natural. Nobody likes keyword stuffing. And, of course, make sure your abstract can stand on its own and that you're following the journal's rules, like the 300-word limit at places like PLOS Genetics. When it comes to keywords, you want them to back up everything else. So pull them straight from your title and abstract. That consistency is key. Think about synonyms too. What other words might people use? And here's a great little trick.
try to work those keywords into your section headings. It just gives search engines even more signposts that your paper is highly relevant.
Now, let's be real. In today's world, hitting that submit button is not the end of the line. Not even close. You have to be an active champion for your own work. What you do after publication can make a massive difference in how many people actually see your article.
Here's why. Search engines basically see every link to your paper as a vote of confidence. So the more inbound links you have, the more authority your paper gets. So yeah, share it everywhere. On your social media, on your university profile, on ResearchGate, and hey, don't be afraid to ask your colleagues to link to it. It's a win-win for everybody.
So, you might be wondering, how does a platform like Google Scholar actually decide what to put at the top of the list? Well, it's not some big mystery. It really boils down to three main things. First is relevance. How often does the search term show up in your article, especially in the title? Second, citations. If other highly ranked papers cite you, that gives your paper a huge boost. And third is authority. The algorithm tends to favor authors and journals that are already known as experts in a particular field.
You know, when you really step back and look at all this, it becomes clear that getting research seen is a team sport. It's not just on one person's shoulders. Publishers, editors, and authors, we all have to work together to make sure important work doesn't get lost in the noise. It's a true partnership. So we kind of end right back where we started. You've done the heavy lifting, you've made the discovery. The big question left is, what's your plan? What steps are you going to take to make sure your work doesn't just get published, but that it actually gets heard, cited, and used to push your entire field forward?